So once in a while, you realize that just when you thought the bar could not get any lower, somebody digs a mile deep trench and lowers it even further. And in that case, or in the most recent case, that comes in the form of "Think You the Shit Fart" by Ice Spice, who is this rapper, the female rapper that apparently had some kind of career before this. I was not aware of her at all, but "Thank You the Shit Fart" has exploded in popularity across, the internet and the popular music scene. And it has, in just under 2 weeks, it has gotten 9.1 million views on YouTube alone, and it's exploding all over the place. And so, briefly put, "Think You the Shit Fart" is a song length diss track that is meant to challenge the high opinion that some person out there apparently has of themselves, by telling them that far from being the shit, i.e., slang for someone that is impressive, they are in fact not even the fart. Now, think you the shit. Now, saying think you the shit, but you're not even the fart, might be a good comeback in an insult battle, but it's really pushing it to think that this is a concept that needs to be elaborated on. And in fact, it's not even pushing it; it's completely over the limit. But anyway, it's ridiculous. And there's so many things I could say about this. Now, one thing that people are going to bring up is that they're going to want to know what I think of Ben Shapiro's new rap single. I'll talk about that, which is something else I never thought I'd say, but I'll talk about that in a separate video. But talking about this, there are so many angles from which you could talk about how ridiculous and awful this song is, and just how vile this thing is. But the first thing that comes to mind as I look at this is, I just have to looking at the song itself. What is "Think You the Shit Fart"? It is an arrogant woman doing something vaguely rhythmic that involves whispering and grunting on top of a backing track that is an extraordinarily simple bass line, an extraordinarily simple bass kick drum part, and some sort of automated arpeggio thing happening in the synthesizer, and that's it. And on that alone, it's like the sheer lack of effort alone is damnable in this thing. Now, this song is not alone in this. This is what's blown up in popularity recently. And the thing is, like, the reason, well, first of all, just talking about it from a production standpoint, what you have to understand about all of those loops that all three of those loops that were dropped into a timeline to make the backing track for this. It requires almost no knowledge of production whatsoever, because those loops are already in and of themselves leveled and mastered and everything else. They're designed to be able to be dropped into place and create a professional sounding track with no effort whatsoever. I could create one of those backing tracks in no time flat right here in my home studio, and not have to do any of the kind of engineering or not extreme, but engineering or additional production work, or mixing or mastering or anything that I would normally charge in the hundreds of dollars for if I were producing, if I were producing an actual track of actual music. But it's kind of like, think about it this way. Right now, I have a death metal side project of my own that we're working on our first single to put it out. And I call it like cyber death metal, because there's this kind of futuristic, Fear Factory in flames synthesizer element to it. And that's there, but it's primarily a, death metal guitar or melodic death metal guitar oriented band. And so, yeah, I'm making use of synthesizer. Now, I'm not using samples. I'm writing my own actual synth parts, but I am using synth patches and everything that are designed to be set up and ready to go. That's helpful. But in addition to that, to get the guitar tones I want, what I'm going to have to do is mic up my amplifier, mic up my live rig, take it. I can't do that here. I have to take it to somewhere else, which for me right now, where I'm going to have to take it is my office at work when nobody's there, and mic it up in there and record it from there, and uh, and just do all of the miking and all of the leveling, and think about the acoustic properties of the room I'm in. What kind of reverberation am I dealing with? What kind of muffling do I have to do? All of that stuff. What kind of deadening do I have to put up and everything like that? And all this is just for one instrument. This is just to get the guitar sound that I need. And from there, I will reamp the guitar tracks I recorded here at my office, here in my home office. I will reamp those guitar tracks through the mic'd up live amp to get a live guitar sound out of it. And I did this already for those guitars, but I'm probably going to have to go back and do it again with a different head on my amp and everything. And that's one instrument. That's to say nothing of what I need to do with the drums to get good drum sounds and everything. That's production. That's work. That's the actual work of producing a song. Dropping these things into, dropping these asinine samples into a timeline and having this woman rant on top of it requires no effort whatsoever. And it's just so galling and frustrating from a producer standpoint, because it's just the perfect example of how gold sinks and shit floats. And so that's what's so asinine about it. This song that is based on just morbidly primitive levels of arrogance and disdain and prideful hubris and all of that. All of that is predicated on an actual musical track that is of no accomplishment whatsoever. So that's thing one that comes to my mind. The next thing is, what is this song actually? What is this song really? And it's this same thing we hear over and over in rap songs now. It's just what everybody does now. And it's every measure of every verse is triplet 2, triplet 4, triplet 2, triplet 4, or just, triplet beat, triplet beat, triplet beat, triplet beat. And if there's any variety, it's triplet, triplet, triplet beat, and and it's just this thing we keep getting over and over again. And it's kind of like these songs can no longer be distinguished anymore. Literally, when everything is the same. Nothing can be, none of these things can be distinguished. These songs can be distinguished anymore. It's kind of like, every genre of music, every popular genre of music eventually outstays its welcome, to the point that you can kind of start to notice the recurrent elements of that style that have become cliche, and compile all of them into something that that parodies and makes fun of the genre. Kind of like, if you think about it, Steel Panther, which is a great band in and of themselves, but Steel Panther was put together to mock and ridicule 80s hair metal. I mean, it's a gentle mockery. Obviously, it's made by people who love the genre and appreciate the genre, but it is still a mockery of 80s hair metal. And all of the cliches of 80s hair metal songwriting are apparent in their songs. And, if you use that era, the 80s hair metal era, it got to such a point at the end of the 80s that it was only natural that something like Nirvana would come along and blow it all away. But those bands, every one of these bands, were coming out and they were doing the same formula. The first track, your first single, is your big mid-tempo arena rock anthem. It's your attempt at doing Shot Through the Heart and You're to Blame, You Give Love a Bad Name. And then your second song is your sensitive, every bad boy has his soft side love ballad. It's your attempt at doing Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And it's just like over and over again, all of these bands were coming along, and these were some great bands. A lot of these bands had a lot of tremendous talent, especially as the shred movement took over, and the influence of Shrapnel Records and all of the shredders and everything, which is my thing. As that took over, you had some incredible musicianship in there, but it's undeniable that the style was getting cliche and contrived and formulaic. But even within that, here's my point, even within that, you had songs that were distinctly different. You know, Cherry Pie by Warrant and Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard are conceptually the same type of song. They are big, mid-tempo arena rockers that use food metaphors for describing sex with attractive women. Okay, those are they're in the same category in that regard, but they are not the same song. You can tell which melody is Cherry Pie and which melody is Pour Some Sugar on Me. Whereas when I say it's the same song over and over again, all of these rappers are just doing this thing where there's not even, they call it a flow, there's no flow to it. It doesn't feel flowing at all. It feels spastic and erratic. It's this thing where you stutter on the beat. That's all it is. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. And over again is da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da. And it just keeps happening over and over and over again. And it's like, you stop and think, and there's no musicality. There's not even anything musically engaging in a song like "Think You the Shit Fart," and it's it's not like the scene. If you like, rap has always been about samples, has always been a cut and paste art form. But even then, there was creativity to it. You see the scenes in like the movie Straight Outta Compton, where a young Dr. Dre is like surrounded by records, old funk albums and Motown albums and everything, trying to find these loops he can exploit that no one else has done. There's at least even then there's an attempt at innovation, and there's an attempt at, pardon me. I hate when that happens, when you need like 5 minutes to sneeze. Anyway, but even then, there was an attempt at innovation. There was an attempt at blending, finding unusual combinations of loops to put together. This is literally just the bare minimum effort to fart out some garbage. And that's what amazes me, is like, again, the sheer level of arrogance and hubris that is driving this woman. It's like she thinks she's the shit, but she's not even the fart. And so as I listen to "Think You the Shit Fart," and that's the next thing that comes to my mind. It's like, when is this going to go out of style? When is triplet beat, triplet beat, triplet beat going to go out of style? This is not flowing. It's not engaging. A flow in rap is, "This beat is my recital. I think it's very vital to rock a rhyme that's right on time." That is flowing. There's a flow to the lyrics. That's when they call it a flow. That's what they're talking about. Just like it's just like any piece of poetry flows, or any piece of verse poetry flows. Look at like The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, has a flow to it. Look at something simple like "'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse." That has a triplet feel to it, but it still flows. It's not just stuttering on the beat. It's not just that's the behavior of people. That's not what you're hearing when you hear stutter on the beat followed by one word on the accent, one word accenting the next beat. This is not rapping. It's people who don't know how to rap doing fiddle farting around and coming up with something that vaguely approximates what rap is supposed to be. But it's funny, even a novelty rapper like MC Hammer, MC Hammer is known for 2 songs, for "You Can't Touch This" and "Too Legit to Quit." And both of those songs are infinitely better than this asinine tripe. Because, my God, the man engages meaningfully with the beat. It actually flows. There's actually a sense of groove to it. And that's the thing. I've lived through, I'm not you know, I was in high school when this young woman was born. She was born January 1st. I read it was, I believe, January 1st of 2000. She was born. Literally, if you want to know what a downhill slope we were about to get on in the 2000s, the first thing that happened was Ice Spice was born. Anyway, but I can remember the early days. See, I was born 4 decades ago, boys and girls. I can remember the early days of rap. I remember the entire history of it. I remember the emergent popularity of Run DMC and LL Cool J and the early rappers that were having crossover success like that into the mainstream. I remember the emergence of Public Enemy and NWA, the kind of political street rappers that eventually gave way to gangster rap. I remember, I can remember being in elementary school and kids were sneaking copies of Snoop Dogg Doggy Style into school. I can remember all of this stuff you hear about in the history books. I lived through it. And I was in high school, I lived through Tupac Shakur, and I lived through all of that. I've done several takes of this, and I can't remember if I've done the I lived through this part of this rant yet or anything already. If I have, please bear with me. But I lived through Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls and Eminem and all of that. I've seen all this stuff, and you have to understand something. Whether you liked rap or not, at least the rappers of the time were doing different things. They weren't doing this same thing over and over again. This triplet stutter thump. They weren't doing that. The rhyme scheme of It's Tricky by Run DMC is distinct from the rhyme scheme of Parents Just Don't Understand by Will Smith. There was a time when it was not, you were at least getting different songs. Now we don't even get different songs anymore. And what's happened, and this is another rant, but what's happened is there is no profit motive driving innovation in the music industry anymore. Now, yes, music execs are still able to cut themselves checks for billions of dollars every year. I'll explain why that is in a moment. But the thing is, because there's no money to be made off of album sales, off record sales anymore, then you are now, because there's no money in that market anymore, there is nothing driving the record industry to find and capitalize on newly emergent trends. The reason Nirvana didn't just happen because of Nirvana, it happened because they realized that they had pushed a genre, record execs realized they had pushed a genre of music as far as it was going to go, and they needed to go start probing the popular trends of the underground to find the next big thing. And, Smells Like Teen Spirit was like the perfect anthem for all of that. We don't have that anymore because here's the thing, boys and girls. Long time ago, back before Napster, it was when it was possible to actually make your career off of music. What happened was the record label got you basically you recorded your album, you gave that to the record label, and they made their money off of that, while you made your money going out and touring. Very seldom and very rare was the artist that saw a lot of money on the back end from their actual album sales. And that's why you will hear about things where there are these songs that are still getting played on the radio 40, 50 years later, and the guys that recorded them are painting houses for a living, that kind of thing, because the money was in the touring. The money was not in the record sales for the artist. The artist accepted getting screwed out of record sales so that they could make money off of, they could make their real money, their real cash prize off of touring. That was where your actual money was. Now, now what's happened is in the era past, after Napster and LimeWire and all these other things destroyed the music industry, it's what's happened is most artists are now signed to what's called a 360 deal. A 360 deal means that not only are the record companies getting that previous overwhelming majority share of your album sale profits, they are getting a cut of your money off of the tour, a cut of the guarantee that you're paid. You're paid by the promoters. They're getting anything you do, anything that that you're paid by the venue, they get a cut off. Anything that you're paid in merch sales, they get a cut off. They get a cut if you are, sponsored by, if you're sponsored by Nike, they get a cut of that. If you're sponsored by a guitar company, they get a cut of that. While you're under that contract, anything associated with you, they will get a cut off. And so that's a 360 deal, and that's how they're able to they're able to continue to cut themselves billion-dollar checks every year while the artists are getting screwed harder and harder and harder. And what happens is the way that they've made that arrangement sound appealing is basically by selling a rock star fantasy lifestyle to artists. And people like this Ice Spice woman are perfect examples of a victim of that. She's getting chewed up and spat out. She's going to get chewed up and spat out on the strength of a few novelty hits and forgotten about. But the real payout to her was not the money. The real payout to her that they're offering her was the chance to be famous. That thing that we are all chasing because we think that fame on some subconscious level, as was discussed in the book Denial of Death, we think of fame as being a way of attaining immortality, at least on the subconscious level. We're all hungry for that. We're all whores, and we're all, surprisingly, we're all willing to do just about anything to get a slice of that. And that's what they're selling you. That's the only thing they're offering you. And people are so fucking hungry for that they're willing to put out a song called Think You the Shit Fart to get a little piece of it. Anyway, so that's where that is. And that's the other thing that occurs to me. But the final thing I wanted, the final dimension across which I wanted to analyze this was, well, the next thing, of course, is just there's two things. The next thing, of course, is just the asinine the asinine sexuality of it. Look, just, we are living in a post-WAP world. You should really say post-WAP, because WAP is an epithet for Italians. But anyway, a post-wet-ass pussy world. We are living in a post-wet-ass pussy world. And Wet-Ass Pussy was kind of the song where it was so embarrassing. It's what I hear when I hear the song Wet Ass Pussy. It does not seem sexual. It does not seem tantalizing. It does not even seem gross or offensive. It seems desperate. It seems like people who are trying, it's the writing of the lyrics of people who are trying desperately to be sexually provocative in an era where OnlyFans and Pornhub are household names. Not you, whatever you think of pornography, it's pretty much undeniable that it's about as mainstream as it's ever going to get now. I mean, it could not, or put it this way, I don't think it could get more mainstream than it is now. So there's nothing, there is nothing shocking or tantalizing or daring about this, and that's what's so funny is, when Wet Ass Pussy came out and everyone was saying, well, clearly the backlash to this is the result of people being shocked and intimidated by black women freely and openly flaunting their sexuality. And you're like, really? You're going to piss in my eye and tell me it's raining with that one? You think that Wet Ass Pussy is some shock to the system because it's black women showing off, flaunting their sexuality? You think that's what people don't like about it? The song that came out some 20 plus years after, I believe 20 plus years after My Neck, My Back, My Pussy, and My Crack. I mean, my God, no, what is off-putting about it is how needy and how desperate it sounds. I mean, I looked at video of this this Ice Spice woman, which, by the way, if you're gonna do a video called Think You the Shit Fart, make sure that you're constantly squatting down like you're about to take a dump on the floor in the video. I mean, that's just, that just really nails it home. But anyway, what is the appeal of this woman, this Ice Spice woman? I've seen her video of her concerts, and she spends more time twerking than she does actually performing, shaking her butt for everybody. You know, she does her little, I've watched video of this song being performed live, and she walks around and whisper grunts the lyrics, and then she turns around and shakes her butt at the audience, and that's when they cheer. And it's like, you think that's a... Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with a sexy woman shaking her butt in the camera, but why do you need to be teased with it when you've already got the reality of it readily available to you? Here, if you think Ice Spice is impressive because of her twerking, I want you to go open up your search window, your search engine right now, and put in the following letters: ABELLA. Now hit the space bar. Now put in the letters DANGER. Push enter. Congratulations. You now have access to the performance library of another woman who has made her shaking her posterior, her very pronounced and very shakeable posterior, into a profit-driving asset to her overall entertainment personae. But guess what? In this case, the twerking butt doesn't have any clothes on it. You can actually see the butt. And you don't have to go into this with any pretense whatsoever that looking at this beautiful shaking ass, that you're doing something more than looking at this beautiful shaking ass. You don't have to try to apologize or you don't have to try to dignify this asinine, idiotic song. You can just say, yeah, I'm here to look at this this naked woman's beautiful ass. There you go. That completely alleviates any action, or completely obliterates what vague scintilla of appeal Ice Spice could actually have in the world. And I mean, that's part of it. Now that gets into it. So pulling all of that together, I want to show you how easy it is to do this. I mean, okay, this triplet, again, the lyric, it's just triplet thump, triplet thump, triplet thump. That's all we're hearing in the lyrics. And so I wrote my own Ice Spice style rap anthem. This is called You Ain't the Pussy, You the Afterbirth. Ready? Give me the cash, come in my snatch, suck on my taint, light me a match. You ain't got G's, you ain't got class, come make them fitties rain on my ass. I drive them cars, I fuck them stars, it ain't my fault you stuck in the bars. Come on my titties, charge you a 20, ain't my fault if your bank account empty. You ain't the pussy, you the afterbirth. Second verse. When he need nuts, I get the call. It ain't my fault you licking his balls. I ain't got time for this dumb shit. I got that platinum on my next hit. Think you got game? You ain't got shit. Your pussy got AIDS. My pussy legit. I ain't no hoe. My pussy high end. What made you think our pussies be friends? You ain't the pussy. You the afterbirth. That took me about as long to write as it did to read. I mean, this is this asinine. Why is this so fucking appealing? Why is this the only two things that this musical genre is now concerned with is making obscene amounts of money. I can appreciate that, but then putting people down, sowing ill will among your fellow human beings, showing like puffing out your chest and showing that you're more arrogant and braggadocious than the person who was previously the most arrogant and braggadocious person in the room. Like, and using infantile toilet humor to do it. And that gets me to my next problem with this. Now, this will blow you away, but regular viewers to my channel know that I hold Candace Owens in an extraordinarily low regard. She is not even a legitimate conservative. I don't view her as even a legitimate conservative political commentator. She is an asinine grifter that tried a whole lot of other political positions and public personas and political positions until she hit on the idea of, or she hit on the reality that she could make a lot of money by setting herself up to be the person that white uber conservatives are talking about when they say, no, don't worry, no, it's okay, my black friend agrees with me. That's Candace Owens. I have about the same opinion of her that Dave Chappelle holds. You know, it's not. I hold her in very, and no, I don't want to kick her in her stinky pussy. Not that part, just the part that he holds her in low regard. But anyway, uh, but I have to say, and this is how bad this song is. If Candace Owens and I are able to agree on anything, then the song's got to be pretty fucking bad. But I listened to her commentary on it, and she had on just this one thing. This woman has never had a good point about anything before in her life. There's a first time for everything. A broken clock is still right twice a day. But anyway, she did have a good point about this, which is what makes this song so asinine and so galling is the way the music press and academia immediately emerges and starts talking about how brilliant it is. And and she read you can go look up her video on it if you want to hear all the examples, but she read examples from these music writers that are trying to puff this up as some kind of brilliant new brilliant new concept that or the some kind of lyrical brilliance or something like that. And this keeps happening over and over again every time black hip hop artists produce something incredibly juvenile and embarrassingly juvenile and stupid. A bunch of hack pseudo intellectuals have to emerge and feel like they have to emerge and pretend it's the most brilliant thing ever. It's kind of like when, again, the aforementioned wet ass pussy was the most popular thing on the market. I remember reading an article talking, I think it was in Rolling Stone actually, talking about how in the music video, Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, no, Cardi B, it's Cardi B. Again, these people all run together in my mind. It's Cardi B, right? Anyway, Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, were all, that they, in the video, they're interacting with Dada-esque architecture. No, it's just gaudy and over the top and ridiculous. There's nothing of value. Stop scraping bottom, trying to pretend that this is anything other than absolute idiotic bullshit. Now, I know that the perpetually aggrieved outrage mongers of the internet will hear me say something like that, and their response is going to be, yeah, well, you know what? That might be true, but think about like all the stupid stuff that like white people put out. Like dark white culture creates all kind of stupid, infantile, like juvenile, all those words you used, stuff too, and nobody says anything about it because they racism. Nah. Okay, we'll get to the racism thing in a moment, but stop for a minute. Here's the difference. Yes, every single culture, every ethnic background, every nationality, every culture has its version of stupid low-class behavior. For white people, it's the country bumpkins, the hillbillies, the rednecks, the targets of Jeff Foxworthy's humor, that sort of thing. For the Black American population, it is the inner city thug gangster stereotype. Every group has their concept of local, their version of their cultural iteration of trashy low class behavior. The difference is in white America, in white culture, you don't hear public intellectuals and academics going on these long-winded rants trying to defend the extraordinary the extraordinary and underappreciated brilliance of Larry the Cable Guy or something like that, or things like you don't hear that. You don't hear the white equivalent of Michael Eric Dyson popping up and explaining at length about why the butthole surfers are brilliant, underrepresented, unrespected intellectuals for songs when they put out songs like "I Saw an X-ray of a Girl Passing Gas." You don't hear that. No one's trying to prop all of that juvenile nonsense bullshit that, yes, every culture puts out some version of that, no doubt. But when it comes to white, the white culture, contemporary culture, you don't hear intellectuals going on at length trying their damnedest to pretend that things that are just abject stupidity meant to entertain and titillate the lowest common denominator are actually deep intellectual ruminations. They just say, yeah, that's a bunch of stupid crap, and leave it at that. And that's all this is. There is no deep intellectual value to be found in this. And that's what's so incredibly galling about this, because rather than, you have these assholes like the aforementioned Michael Eric Dyson who do this, the black pseudo intellectuals that and hack commentators that do this. They take these things that are obviously things like think you the shit fart and things like wet ass pussy and all of that, and they try to pretend like it's these deep cultural meditations on this, that, or the other. You're just pretending. The emperor really does have no clothes. And it's like, you're not just not only are you in denial when you try to defend crap like this on an intellectual level, obvious garbage like this on an intellectual level, it's not just that you're denying that the emperor has no clothes, it's that you are so in denial about the fact that the emperor has no clothes that you're rushing up to the emperor, putting his cock and balls in your mouth and going, well, who got clothes on? I mean, that's how pathetic this is. Stop defending this asinine, stop pretending that this asinine crap is anything of value. There are brilliant, genius, amazing black musical innovators and pioneers. If you have put it this way, yes, European culture can point to composers like Beethoven and Mozart and Brahms and Wagner and all of that. Yes, I'm not European, I'm American, but European, the European cultural collective can point, or the collective of European cultures can point to people like that. Here's the thing, black American culture can point to composers that are every bit as brilliant as that. People with names like Louis Armstrong and Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Duke Ellington and Charles Mingus, and all on and on and up the ranks it goes. There, Stefan Harris, the vibraphonist, comes to mind. I mean, there are such a limitless sprawl of these amazing composers that are just practically forgotten by history, so that we can give attention to think you the shit fart. If we had value, think about this. One of the reasons that Metallica the band Metallica earned a lot of musical respect early on was because their bass player, their original bass, not original, but the first bass player to play on an album, a Metallica album, was Cliff Burton, who played on the first 3 albums. He had actual musical training. He was an actual learned musician. And so actual composers with actual theory knowledge and actual compositional skill could listen to Metallica and listen to his influence on it, and they could hear the counterpoint. They could hear the classical influences. They could hear the influence of Brahms and Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and all those people I mentioned. In fact, Cliff Burton has a chord solo at the beginning of Damage Inc., which is based on a classical piece called Come Sweet Death. There was all of this stuff that you could actually appreciate there. And that was what got Metallica so much respect early on, before they even crossed over into the mainstream, was that actual musicians could appreciate them. We don't see anything like that in Think You the Shit Fart. There's nothing. What we should be doing from a cultural standpoint is, go listen to Think You the Shit Fart, and then go listen to Kind of Blue by Miles Davis, and which one of these is more musically accomplished. Which one of these is of actual value. Which one of these was made by a genius, by actually a group, an ensemble of geniuses, amazing players, an ensemble of just amazing players. You know who this was. Go listen. You should, when you hear something like "Think You the Shit Fart," what your real response should be Miles Davis. It should be Sun Ra. It should be Pharoah Sanders. It should that should be your response. Those are the people. And if you're ticking off the diversity boxes, and I haven't mentioned any women yet, well, then we'll also put in Ella Fitzgerald and Ella Fitzgerald and Aretha Franklin, all of the names you already know. I don't need to rattle off all of these names, but you get the point. There is so much of actual value to celebrate. And there is such a high, the thing is, what's galling is not that it's not that black artists are not being held, or sorry, it's not that the standard is too low for black entertainers. It's that the standard for black entertainers is so incredibly high, and yet you keep elevating people who are not even of enough value to untie Stevie Wonder's shoes, let alone be considered his successors. And yet you keep trying to elevate this asinine bullshit to the level of those gods. Good Lord. And that's what's so galling, because like I think it was in BuzzFeed or something, and I know BuzzFeed is where human decency goes to die, but nevertheless, I think it was in BuzzFeed I saw this list of things that was like statements white people make that are dog whistles, that they're actually racist. And one of them was to say that you only appreciate old rap. And I thought that was so. So why do we keep playing this game? This thing of like, you don't like, if you don't like rap, you must be racist. So wait a minute. You're telling me that I was instantly, with no acquiring of taste whatsoever, I was instantly and totally able to appreciate jazz and blues and gospel and R&B and reggae and funk, and even the early rap artists, even really creative and innovative rap artists like Arrested Development and A Tribe Called Quest and the Fugees and De La Soul and all of that, and there even that early rap that I was able to appreciate, all of that stuff. But clearly I can't appreciate this stuff that is obviously garbage. So I must be the one with the problem. Stop with that. Stop with that shit. You know this is garbage. You know that black culture is capable of putting out extraordinary works of art, brilliant, transcendental works of art. And even rap, there's even incredible rap. And I'll tell you, my favorite lyricist in the whole genre of rap is Asheru. And if you don't know who Asheru is, you will definitely know his most famous lyrics. I am the stone that the builder refused. I am the vision, the inspiration that made ladies sing the blues. I am the spark that makes your idea bright, the same spark that lights the dark so that you can know your left from your right. I am the ballad in the box, the bullet in your gun, the inner glow that lets you know to call your brother son, the story that's just begun, the promise of what's to come, and I'ma remain a soldier until the war is won. Dude, that is heavy, man. That hits, just reading that, to say nothing of the musical content of it, just reading that hits like a ton of bricks. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I would put that in the company of Langston Hughes or Maya Angelou. That is gorgeous. That is beautiful, passionate writing right there. That's what you need to be championing, not think you the shit fart. And I want to make one final observation here, and one final observation on this asinine confluence of, of accusations that if you don't like garbage like think you the shit fart, it must be because you're racist. Okay, once again, Uncle Jordan is in his 40s, and Uncle Jordan remembers what the music scene was actually like, and back in the day. And you have to remember something about when bands like NWA emerged and gangster rap took over and all of that. People were, like, white middle American people were legitimately terrified around all of that. In the early 90s, we had the Rodney King riots, and it felt like a lot of simmering racial animosity, racial hostility was boiling over, had finally reached a boiling point, and people legitimately thought that there was going to be a race riot in the country. There a race war in that country. Rodney King riots were race riots, but that there was going to be a race war in the country. People thought shit was finally going to go down. And suddenly, white middle America, that's very worried about this, is suddenly surrounded by songs like Fuck the Police and Cop Killer and all that, which, by the way, side note, we need to re release the first Body Count album with Cop Killer on it. Like, by God, if we can re release the first Wasp album with Fuck Like a Beast, we can re release the first Body Count record with Cop Killer. My God, just for crying out loud. Anyway, but you're suddenly surrounded by songs like this. And white America is legitimately scared and afraid. Now, here's the thing. This is what people don't seem to understand. The way they dealt with that was to absorb rap in the way they dealt with that fear. The white people that actually do have their hands on the levers of power, the way they dealt with that was to absorb gangster rap and rap culture in general into the already negative propagandistic perspective on, or the propagandistic negative advertising about black people that they were trying to push to mainstream middle America. They absorbed rap right into that, to the point that by the end of the 90s, which unlike Ice Spice, I actually lived through, by the end of the 90s, what had been this fearsome cultural juggernaut, to a force to be reckoned with, which was gangster rap, had been turned into a ridiculous parody of itself. I can't remember what artist it was, but even I remember being like 14, 15 towards the end of the 1990s and turning on MTV and seeing there's some rap group where the guys were rapping in front of a fried chicken restaurant. You know, it was like every negative stereotype was just right up in your face and on display. And that was by design. That was by design. They took this thing that was they took this thing that was a cultural juggernaut that was really making people, the first NWA album begins with, I believe it's Eazy-E, who says, "You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge." And that is a that is a wise statement and a wise portent of what was to come. Because it was legitimately making people sit up and take notice. And what the powers that be did was they just absorbed it into it. They're more than happy. They are more than happy to have some. They're more than happy to have some minstrel show stereotype like Ice Spice make several $1 million and have her own speedboat down in South Beach, if it means propagandizing this extraordinarily negative image of black people to the culture at large. And the sad, most awful thing about that is that it's being consumed by and bankrolled by exactly the demographic of people that it is designed to insult and put down. And that is what this crap is. That's what's so galling about it. There is really, in terms of the level of portrayal, I mean, what stereotypes think about the stereotypes that were presented about black people in the minstrel shows, and the stereotypes that were perpetuated about black people in the minstrel shows, and the stereotypes that are perpetuated about black people in the popularity of songs like "Think You the Shit Fart" and things like that. Okay, let's see. Ignorance, criminality, childish, juvenile and juvenile behavior, animalistic attitudes towards sex, all of that. It's the same thing. It's the minstrel show rebranded. But the powers that be got you. The galling thing, the only difference is, aside from the fact that if you took away the racism, you had if you took away the racism from a minstrel show, you would still have performers that were actually you would still have musicians, dancers, and comedians that were actually talented in their fields, even without despite the abysmally abhorrent racism. You don't have the underlying talent in in this new thing that's replaced the minstrel shows. But anyway, aside from that, the only real difference between the minstrel shows of yore and this garbage that's being perpetuated now is that is that in the minstrel shows of yore, you had, and there were some black performers within that, but by and large, the overwhelming majority of it was black people, or white people, excuse me, dressing up as black people. Whereas now, the powers that be have gotten black performers to start doing the minstrel show routine themselves. And that is what is so asinine and so galling when assholes like Michael Eric Dyson try to act like this sort of bullshit. The all of this crap that comes out at the level of think you the shit fart. When this bullshit comes out, you have assholes like Michael Eric Dyson trying to get all puffed up and high and mighty as if this is some brilliant innovation that white America is just failing to appreciate. No, that top 1% of white people that actually have their hands on the levers of power, the ones that actually do have a vested interest in disenfranchising black people and keeping them down, those people, people like Michael Eric Dyson are exactly what they want. They are the exact toadies that they want to push these horrible negative stereotypes about black people that have been allowed to masquerade and exist for decades now under the guise of this asinine, I keep using that word, but I can't say it hard enough, this asinine garbage that limps along masquerading as a musical genre. Rap used to be so vibrant and diverse, and it used to have so many great innovators, everything from the DJs to the rappers and lyricists themselves, and all across the board. There was so much experimentation, so many people trying new things. There used to be so much innovation, and now it is just this pathetic juvenile garbage that has been foisted on black culture so that they can make fun of themselves. Like, God. Oh, I did want to say one more thing. As we're talking about how garbage like Think You the Shit Fart negatively impacts the black community, returning to the lyrics, the lyrics for a minute, something occurred to me as I was writing my parody of Think You the Shit Fart and that triplet stop rhyme scheme like that. As I was writing that, something occurred to me. If you slow it down, it's the rhyme scheme of Dr. Seuss. You know, I ain't no hoe, my pussy high end. What made you think our pussies be friends? Like, if you change the tone with which it's read, it literally becomes the rhyme scheme of Dr. Seuss. And that's something else that is another just cultural malignancy that's been allowed to fester in the black community, which is the kind of the way in which everything so many of these things seem to stop at their development at the child level. These cultural concepts seem to stop their development at an equivalent child level. It's kind of like there was, again, I remember back in the 90s, there was this trend of in the black community of adults, young adults who went around with pacifiers in their mouths. They would have pacifiers in their mouth, they'd attach them to their hair and everything. There's an excellent movie called Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. It was made by the Wayans brothers. That movie lampoons, it lampoons growing up in the hood movies like Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society and all of that stuff. It lampoons those movies, and it is razor sharp satire on the level of like Monty Python Life of Brian. It is phenomenally good. But they actually made fun of that trend of like the guys that would have pacifiers hanging from their hair in they made fun of that in that movie. And this guy has not just pacifiers but condoms hanging from his hair, things like that. That was this trend that took off for a while, and it's like, wait a minute. No one wants to stop and say the obvious that, like, hey, wait a minute. Stop a minute. If young adults, people in their, the 18 to 24 demographic, people in that demographic in black culture are wearing taking, carrying, using pacifiers and still going around sucking on pacifiers, how morbid, how morbidly awful does our society have to be that we started seeing, like, adult-sized pacifiers being marketed for that purpose, and nobody's wanting to stop and say, wait a minute. The whole reason this trend exists is because you've got a whole generation of kids that aren't getting weaned off pacifiers. That's the thing. It's like, it's so, again, it is so galling because I grew up, I grew up in the deep South, man. I have seen the vestigial remnants of, or the remnants of the Southern, oppressive Southern culture that Black people had to rise up against and fight against. I've seen it face to face. I've been face to face with those attitudes. I've been face to face with racism. I've seen and when I mean racism, I mean white racism against Black people. I've seen how bad it can get. And I know and understand and respect how much Black culture has had to overcome. And it's inspiring how much they've had to overcome. And that's why it is so galling and so awful and so off-putting when I see things like this, like "Think You the Shit Fart" being elevated as anything worth even a moment's consideration. I mean, I understand the people that are clicking on it to laugh at it, but my God, if you are going to be one of these pseudo-intellectual hacks, like I don't know that Michael Eric Dyson said anything about this particular song, but he said things about similar songs in the past. If you're going to be someone like that who's pretending that this song is some kind of brilliant innovation of Black culture, seriously, go fuck yourself. You are a complete Benedict Arnold, a complete traitor, a complete betrayer of your race. And to have the gall to act like you are speaking on behalf of your race, or that you are elevating this trash as something that portrays your race in a positive or in any way, shape, or form respectable light, that is disgusting. Go fuck yourself. And when you get done, put on Miles Davis' Kind of Blue and stop and think for a minute, oh my God, this is what we're supposed to be celebrating. Put on Stevie Wonder, Songs in the Key of Life. Not just stop trying to pretend that something like "Think You the Shit Fart" is the shit when it's not even the fart.